Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. A huge apology for not managing to get a video out last week. I have been working on the sustainable quilt. Things happen in life and deadlines are altered and things needed to be shifted about in my calendar a little bit. I'm going to be spending some time away. My sister lives in Spain, she's having a hip replacement operation. So we're going to go and spend some time with her while she recovers. And so I've had to alter things around a little bit. And one of the things I needed to shift was this entrance for the sustainable quilt. It's in the Festival of Quilts at the NEC in the middle of England. And it's in August, the actual show. But the deadline was the second week just after in June. And so I needed to get that finished. So I have entered and it's all been submitted. I've done all the paperwork. It took a while to complete the quilt, but I'm really pleased with it. At the moment, it's hidden away, so I'm not looking at it. I think just before it's time to take it there, I will have another look with fresh eyes and see if there's any tweaking. But as far as I'm concerned at the moment, it's finished, but we'll see nearer the time. So in August, I'll show you the video of making that quilt. It was a really enjoyable process, but it did take a long time. And so, like I say, I've had to alter things around in my diary, and that's the reason why. So it was December of 2023 that I first thought about entering a quilt into the competition. I like the category sustainable quilts. It appeals to my no waste philosophy, and I did think that it would be an interesting thing to know about how you went about entering a quilt. So that's why I entered it. I don't think that I've got much chance really of a prize, because there are professional quilters out there, aren't there, that send quilts all over the world to different shows, and there is prize money involved in my category. I didn't have to. I could have gone down the sharing category. There is a group where you can just send in quilts for sharing where it isn't judged. But I did think I'd quite like to go through the whole process and hear what professional quilters think about my quilt. And so that's why I did it, really. And the prize money, well, that's nice as well, isn't it? I'm not going to lie, that would be great in my pot towards a new sewing machine. The day will come when that needs to be replaced. And so that would be handy as well. But like I say, I just really want to see what it looks like hanging up in a public space. And also hearing about what you think of it. You can be honest with me and tell me your views of the quilt. I won't be offended. Please comment. And so that's why I've entered the quilt competition. So that was the big thing that had happened in my sewing room. And now I've done that, I'm in the process now of sorting out all loose ends, tying up everything that needs to be done and dusted before I leave. One of the things I did was to sort out the leftover remnants from the Midnight Quilt Garden. So I processed those scraps and I set aside the yellow and the orange and the green, because I'm trying to make a quilt, an improv quilt. And the trouble I have is if I look at a pile of fabric, so have a look at this pile of fabric for a moment. Just stare at the fabric. Let your mind, your quilting mind, go on a little wander. If you've been a quilter for a while, your mind is set up in a particular way, whether you like to think of it or not really. If you see a huge pile of fabric scraps in front of you, then immediately your quilting mind takes over and it starts to process it. So when you're thinking about the way you're thinking, it's a little bit crazy, but I've looked at that and the first thing I see is colour. I'm automatically thinking, well, what colours would go together nicely? All of those colours went together in one quilt, so there's no real mismatch there, but there are some that go better than others. So immediately I'm thinking colour sort, and then I'm thinking size sort. Are there larger pieces of fabric, fat quarter sizes? Will they go in one area or not? So all of those processes, when you first see a pile of fabric, that's where a quilter's mind generally goes. And then we have the different baggage of what our expectations of improv is. So for me, I like to think of it in quite a romantic way, that you have a huge mountain of glorious colour, of wonderful shapes, and you grab them and you put two together, you put it under your sewing foot, and something miraculous happens. You have all of these unexpected jewel colours working together, and then somehow you get to this wonderful, wonderful, crazy quilt type thing. Well, in reality, that just doesn't work for me, because I look at things and I think, oh, I don't like them colours together. Or it's in an area of a quilt and I'm thinking, that really doesn't go. I shouldn't have done that. I should have cut that out. And you can go back in an improv quilt. You can take things out. And it's time consuming. And I've sort of decided that on this quilt that I'm making, that I'm going to share with you in a minute, I would have what I found out to be called controlled improv. So you can control your improvisation in any way you like. I've decided that I am going to control it with colour. So I've only got white, green, orange and yellow. That's correct. 4 colours. So I'm just using 4 colours. I needed to check then. There does seem more. There are different tones within those colours. So white, green, orange and yellow. That's correct. Just 4. So I've got 4 colours. That is my improv control, number 1. Number 2 is the sizes of the blocks I'm going to make. So I want this quilt, if I make a beautiful block that I think, oh, that looks really nice, then when I'm coming to put the quilt together, I don't really want to be cutting into those blocks that I've spent a long time putting together in a way that I think is lovely. And so size is my next control. So I'm using 3-inch, 5.5 inch and 8-inch. They can be rectangles, they can be squares, but those are the sizes I'm working in. So that's control number 2. And then control number 3, you can see I'm not really good at maths. That's 3 fingers. Control number 3 is I want to use either squares or rectangles within those blocks. And I think that's it really. I do tend to lean towards log cabins and squares within squares. So if I am just sewing a block together, if I didn't consciously try not to do that, they would probably all end up like that, because I really love them. But in this quilt, I didn't want to work in that way. So let me show you the blocks that I've been working on this week. So I've just laid out on my table all of the improv blocks that I've made in the past in this colour combination. So there's quite a nice selection now. I didn't realise I had quite as many. So they're all different and they've all been made from the leftover pieces of fabric of previous quilts that I've made. And looking at them laid out in front of me, the thing that I'm really enjoying are these small little touches of orange, these thin slithers. Where there's a lot of orange, I think that perhaps should be used sparingly. And these are the small pieces of fabric that I had left over from my Midnight Garden quilt, so I need to add some more to this. And I have got 4 process scrap bags of white, yellow, green and orange. So this is what I will pull from. Well, the first thing I've done is taken the strip of yellow and added a strip of white, and then I've added the strip of green. And now I've joined that piece of green with the orange, and I just want to make a slither of orange. Well, I like the way that orange fits together with that green, so I'm going to cut off a piece of the green, yellow and white and then take it from there. So now I've cut that into a 2 inch, a 2 inch, a 1 1/4 inch strip, and I think I'm going to add some white down there. So I've placed a section of white next to that strip, and I don't like that, so I'm not going to sew that on. But if I place those strips next to each other, I like that much better. So I'm going to sew that together now. So I like the look of that now. That's a little bit better. And if you look closely, you can see that I've taken too much seam in at the top of that white piece. But that's okay. I don't mind that angle. I'm not going to unpick that. So now I'm going to join a piece of white to that top and have a look and see where to go next. Yes, I do like that, so I am now going to add a strip of white down the right hand side, and then I'm going to start to trim that block down a little bit more. So I've snipped that down the green, and to the right of that piece I'm just going to add those cuts. And now I think I'd like to add that white and orange and green strip to the top. Well, at the moment this block measures just over 8 inches by 8 inches, and I don't think it works at all, and so now I'm going to cut into this. So I'm going to cut an 8 by 3 inch strip to start with. Well, I have been working for a few hours, about 2.5 hours, and that doesn't seem representative of the amount of time I've spent. They do take me ages looking and changing my mind. So what I have done is completed some 3 inch squares, and I've got some 3 by 8 inch rectangles. And what I've decided to do now is to add more yellow to these blocks. In the other blocks that I've made, there are just little appearances, feature appearances of slithers of yellow, but I think I'm going to add a little bit more. So these are all the blocks that I've made. You can see that little tiny slither, feature of orange. I'm only going to keep that to small amounts. And so that is my last baggage problem. I'm thinking about how they're going to work together in a final quilt, and if I'm aware of it or not. I am aware of it. I'm starting to put blocks together that I think will work. So I'm thinking I need some more yellow, I need some more green. You know, not necessarily I need to put a specific block next to another block, but I am thinking of the whole design. And I have thought of a design and I can't get rid of it now. And so I think what I'm going to do with this quilt is have in the top left yellow, in the bottom right green, they'll sort of somehow merge in the middle, and there will be white surrounding in the other corners or something like that. Like I say, I don't really want to plan this quilt out. I do want to make it as improvisational as it's possible for me to do. So this is my struggle, And if you've been quilting for quite a while, you might have difficulty too. There are some scraps left over I still need to make into blocks. I have got some white fabric, I have got some yellow, and I have got some green. So I don't want to go out and buy anything new. I'm at that stage of the year when I think, oh, my fabric quantities is growing, so I need to really just use what I've got and start making some quilts. What should we look at next? Oh, I suppose we should look at the month review in my Etsy shop. So we'll have a look at that now. And I just want to apologise a little bit for the quality of the sound in the next part of this video. I know the whole of my video making isn't professional, but the next part is a little bit echoey. And that's because I was dog sitting at the time for my son and family. And I was working in the kitchen with the dog. We're having a lovely time. But then when I've looked back at this video, it's a little bit echoey. So I apologise for that too. And this is April, and I'm not claiming to be psychic or anything. But when I put this page in my journal and decided to use umbrellas, I didn't realise just how much we'd need them. And if you live in the centre of the UK or anywhere in the UK, you'll know what I mean. April was a very wet month. And if I take you in closer, you can see I finished the Midnight Quilt. I finished the Project Linus Rainbow Quilt. I did have computer difficulties. I think now I may have solved them. Inadvertently, I hit the 4G button when I was recording on the phone. So the next time I make the video, I'll try that again. Sustainable quilts. There are 6 yellow windows. So I visited the Sustainable Quilt 6 times. I sold the Dahlia patch, and that was it really. And this is my journal for the Rainbow Quilt, the Project Linus, and the Midnight Garden Quilt. And that took a lot longer than I expected. And these are the figures for my Etsy shop for April. So total views, 77, hugely down on last year and last month. And that's because there's hardly anything left in the shop. There's 4 quilts. I had 157 visits, which is almost half again from last month. And the orders, I had 1. The revenue was £85.50. And Etsy traffic is 70% and I bought 30%. And so the traffic to my shop, unsurprisingly, is right down. And that's because there's hardly anything in the shop. They do say, don't they? I don't know if it's accurate, but I have heard other Etsy shop owners on YouTube say you shouldn't let your stock fall below 5 items. Well, I've only got 4 in there at the moment, so traffic isn't being taken to my shop. And I am going to have to close it. Like I say, it's not something that I had planned to do really at the start of the year, to close the shop. But because of, upcoming events, then I will have to close it. But what I think I might do is to make some quilt tops so that when I do open it, I can open it with, I won't go so far as to call it a flourish, but that I would be able to launch a couple of new quilts in there. So hopefully that might give the shop a little bit of a boost and start to get rid of some of all of this fabric that I'm accumulating, and then we can start again fresh. So that's my plan. We'll see how that goes. Who knows? So the dog and I, if he's watching this, Cash, hello Cash. Maybe that'll send him a bit crazy if he's watching this. But anyway, the dog and I had a nice day. We had treats, we had cuddles, we had walks, and I did design the quilt. So once I finish this Improv quilt, I am going to make this variation of the antique lace block quilt. It comes together really quickly and I think it will look beautiful. So I'll put that video together and I'll share that one with you. So if you are still with me, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for your company. Please take really good care of yourselves and I will see you again next week, hopefully. Bye.